those of you that don't know, there was a bit of a showdown that went on in Glasgow on Thursday. In fact, I first saw it actually because one of my close friends lives in Glasgow, and they were posting on their story what was going on, and I was just like, oh, this is interesting. And then literally the next day, next thing you know, it's on the news. Like, so basically, what happened was, immigration rolled up at this street in Glasgow, and they were trying to take away these two Indian immigrants, basically, apparently, allegedly for immigration offences. I don't know what they've specifically done, but that's what they were doing. And people around started to gain like knowledge of what was going on, and then suddenly this one guy apparently literally put himself, like, not as in this, as in not the two men that were being detained, but passerby literally put himself underneath the immigration van, and he was literally like, yeah, I'm not moving. And then once he was under there, all these people came around and were literally surrounding the van, like, so like couldn't move, and they were literally like chanting all that stuff. And eventually they actually let the two people out, and they were literally chanting stuff like, oh, let our neighbors go, like that sort of thing. And you know what, I was actually pleasantly surprised, because I've always understood Glasgow, there are obviously BAME populations in Glasgow, but I have also understood it to be a bit racist at times. Like, especially, I think there's a bit of like a resistance towards it. So I was quite nice to pleasantly surprised to see that worked, both from the side of seeing people actually standing up for them, but also from the side of actually seeing that it worked. Like, it worked, like surrounded, and they were like, oh, obviously I imagine what will happen now is that maybe certain legalities, etc., will go ahead without them being literally bundled into a van and taken away, and no one knows what's happening to them. I think that's the issue here, because
I was going to say, we don't know what the repercussions might be for those people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The thing with like immigration and that is, obviously, we can't say, yes, everyone should be able to go wherever they want and do whatever they want. Like, we can't say that. However, the way in which we deal with issues regarding immigration, I think, is too hostile. Like, wasn't there like that? It wasn't Theresa May like sending around these buses like telling people like, oh yeah, go home or we'll find you out, or something like that. Like, and now we've got Priti Patel. And you know what? I was actually thinking about this. Obviously a few weeks ago when we were doing that whole like Royals quiz, we were kind of like joking around and stuff, and it's like, you know what, I think that's like, it's all right, because at the end of the day, it's a subject that is quite close to heart, and it's kind of like, if you don't laugh about it,
you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Yeah, literally. But at the same time, do need to obviously acknowledge that this is a serious thing. Like, we might sit here and laugh about, oh yeah, Priti Patel's gonna bang through the door and like take away Simran. Yeah. By the way, how are you back here? Like, what's going on?
Oh, so I spoke to Preeti, guys. Yeah. We've had some conversation. She said I'm allowed in for a little bit longer.
Yeah, probably not after this conversation.
No.
But yeah, it's one thing for us to literally, like, we can joke about it like that, but it's another thing, like, what's actually going on. Like, I saw...
It is a reality for some people.
Yeah, like, I saw another thing on Twitter about, apparently she wants to deport this teenager who's English speaking, not that that should matter in the first place, but yeah, that's an extra box ticked. And they want to deport her, I think, to South Sudan, where she faces FGM, so female genital mutilation, and they still want to do it. And it's the same with these guys in Glasgow. Why, even if these guys are here illegally, and they've done something wrong, it makes sense for them to be deported, whatever. Even if that was the context. Are you really telling me that it's the right decision to be trying to deport them back to India right now? In the midst of COVID, like, what's going on?
But there's priorities that need to be taken at place here. And also the manner in which they do it, by like literally physically arresting and detaining them, it's just so rooted in, like, it's just dehumanizing, and it's just not the way there's legislations to go through, there's paperwork to go through, you get them in the court system, and then you go through it that way. You don't have to physically like apprehend them and take them away and make a big spectacle of it. And obviously the state of this country and the manner in which they detain people and the mass detaining that does happen, like there's like TV shows about it. What are those like immigration like TV shows, and they go into like workplaces, and they just like take all these employees like
warehouses and that type of thing.
It's not a spectacle to be watched and like to find amusement in.
I know.
It's a bit of a joke, and obviously then you, like I said, we joked about the Priti Patel thing, but it is a reality for some people, and the things that she says are very much damaging, and the buses that Theresa May had, like, that's so damaging, and it's all rooted in racism and colonialism and this air of like, the whole "we will find you and we will detain you and deport you." Like, they're not livestock. They're human beings that are, coming here, best case scenario really just for a better life for themselves and for their families, and then in a lot of cases, in shockingly large amount of cases, they're evading threat, they're here for asylum, or there's a real threat for them back home, things like FGM, something I didn't even think about. You always think it's like asylum or like civil war and like really like political thing, not that FGM isn't political, but like things that you see on the news, like refugee seeking and things like that. Stuff like FGM, that didn't even cross my mind. Like threats that affect specific demographics, like women or like different ethnicity groups or like minority ethnicity groups. Yeah. It's a terrifying reality that some people live, and they come here for a better life, and they come here to avoid like an imminent threat, just to be made a spectacle of and treated as not human in the slightest.
It's mad as well, because when you think about how the exact opposite happened by choice, in terms of Britain going around the world, seeing, oh, this is cool, let's just pitch up our tent here and take all the resources and make the people civilized, like that sort of thing. And then like 200 years later, people fleeing, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, from trouble that has happened because of the mess that Britain left there. They're now fleeing because of these civil wars, because they Britain like messed things up when they were there, left straight away when they realised they couldn't do it anymore. And then there's this situation where obviously people just turn against each other. People tried to flee, and then we're like, well, why are you coming here for? We're a tiny island, blah 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 blah. If we're a tiny island, why were we trying to colonize the whole world? I don't understand. Like, who did we think we were? Like,
who did we think we were? And like you say that, like, we would go to a country, ruin everything, leave it so derelict, leave the people with nothing, start internal civil wars there between their own people, and then when things didn't work out for us, pack our stuff up and leave. And this isn't even going back hundreds of years. This is recent. This is like even post World War II, like the state of some countries, even in like Eastern Europe. Like, we're not talking about just like South Asia and East Asian Africa and things like that. We're talking about like Europe as well as included, that all these people have to come, and then you have this Commonwealth, and it's supposed to be like all Britain's colonies all getting along, and then the people that belong to that Commonwealth can't even come here and reap the so-called benefits that they're allowed to reap.
They'll still be like deported, like Windrush and that, like.
And the ones that are here and don't face deportation still have to live at the hands of, racism and institutionalized racism, and they don't get the opportunities afforded to them that their white counterpart or British counterpart normally would. And then another slap in the face, and we've spoken about this before, then you get like manifestos and these articles that come out, and they say that Britain is not institutionally racist, and that the barriers at which we face in our own progression, we put there ourselves, which is a joke.
Yeah, so if you don't laugh, you cry.
If you don't laugh, you'll cry. Priti Patel. Bun Priti Patel.
Yeah. This is not represent the views of Pi Radio. Yeah, this is just... Yeah, Simran said it, not me, Priti.